Hey, True Believers, Englentine here with another episode of Comic Book Origins. This is a series where we take a look at the very first comic book appearance of any character, team, or item. And in this case, we're looking at Ekho. And in all honesty, the first minute or so I use basically given a little bit of a publication history, and it was hard to find any information on this character. Let's see, Ekho is known as Ekho the Mirror World, and it's a French adventure mystery comic series written by Christophe Arlston and drawn by Alessandro Barbucci, who previously did Witch and Sky Doll. Literally, that's all I could get out of this is what's in the books. So, without further ado, we're going to get on with it, but I will say that this was commissioned, and if you would like to commission your own video, go on over to Ko-Fi and just pick any category right there, any story, any character, like I said, any item, any top 10 list, whatever you feel you want to see a video about. I am your humble servant, and actually I'm having fun discovering new things like Ekho here. It really is interesting to me. It's kind of cool to do this. So anyway, go on ahead and do that, and without further ado, let's get into Ekho, New York. As always, we start off looking at the cover, and front and center, beautiful blonde, big boobs, tight pants. That's what the book's about, according to the first image. We got some douchey guy with a Van Dyke and a headband in the background, kind of looking like Shaggy, but on steroids. Both of them are riding dragons, and I noticed that's the Empire State Building in the background, so it gives me this very fantasy in the modern day kind of storyline. Overall, it's a striking cover, although it kind of leans a little heavy on the sex sells bit. But why not? I'm in. Let's check it out. What is this all about here? The next page, surprisingly enough, just to get you caught up, and I kind of appreciate this, Ekho is the Earth, except it's not. We kind of get the story, what's going on. Okay, so here we find the same cities, the same countries, but everything's different. It's a world without electricity. One may be born here or brought here in from Earth by some funny little creatures, the Prishons. I think I'm saying that right. Nobody knows exactly what the Prishons are. But Formile, I don't know if I'm saying that right. You're going to get the American version of it if I'm saying it wrong for the next probably 30 minutes. Sorry, gang. I struggled over the French names in the Marsupilami video, but this one I'm just going to butcher the heck out of them. I don't care. Anyway, but Formile and Yori's arrival is going to upset the balance kept by the Prishons. Possessed by ghosts, Formile must solve their problems in order to go back to being herself again. For when she changes hairstyle, it's a sign that she's inhabited by another personality. And then we kind of get who the players are for this book. Formile Gratule, sorry dudes, was flying to New York when she tumbled on Ekho. An inheritance was waiting for her, and she's now the head of a talent agency. Yuri Prodrov, a computer guy, was Formile's seatmate on the plane. He's been accidentally dragged to Ekho with her. Usually, their personalities are hardly compatible. Grace Lumumba, she is a native to Ekho, loyal secretary of Gratule Agency. In her spare time, she's Yuma the stripper. Okay, well, everybody's got to have a side gig, I guess. Sigisbert Demotafume. This Prishon is a young clerk. His mission is to make sure that the presence of Formile and Yuri doesn't affect the delicate balance of the mirror world too much. Okay, and he kind of looks like some sort of rabbit. The Prishons are a strange and well-mannered little creature who ensure the proper functioning of Ekho by using strange machines. They keep what they call the thermic equilibrium. They have to drink tea at specific times a day. Otherwise, they might turn into dreadful, out-of-control monsters. Okay, kooky. Let's move on. We see an airplane flying through the clouds, and Formile is sleeping. She gets awakened by the flight attendant making her announcements when Formile sees a Prishon, who introduces himself as Sigisbert. I'm going to get it at some point in time during this, guys. Just give me a little time, and I'll get these names right, or at least close. And he says, I am Sigisbert of Motafume, at your service. I do have to point out that opening the story like this makes that introduction page a bit unnecessary. So Sigisbert the Prishon says, hey, Formile, guess what? You've got this inheritance here. And she's like, what? Wait a second. She says, your aunt died just a few weeks ago. She says, no, she died 20 years ago. Says, in this world, yes, in ours, no. She just died a few weeks ago. Do you accept your inheritance? And Formil says, yeah, I guess so. And we come to find out, though, that Formil's the only one that can see him. And that does include, of course, the Shaggy character that we saw on the cover. So when the Prishan disappears, a storm appears, causing all sorts of havoc. This causes Formil to say, oh no, we're gonna die. And what is his name? Yuri is like, oh no, air travel is the safest form of travel. She's like, not today. And we see her losing conscious, but she's holding on to Yuri. At the same time, we see a bolt of lightning. And instantly, they find themselves in a strange place. And Yuri's like, this is not a regular plane. And of course, that kind of pulls back so we could see it's a winged creature that's carrying a whole bunch of creatures in themselves. Like, wait a second, why just us? Are we dead? And they see that they're flying over New York going, wait a second, is this heaven or hell? And the dude's like, hey, if this is New York, I think it's a perfect mix of both. The flight attendant says, everybody get into landing positions. They see everybody hold their head kind of crouched down. He says, we should do the same. And the animal just goes, whoom, causing everybody to fly up in the air a little bit. So once they get off the plane, animal, Formil says she has to go pee, and she leaves Yuri by himself, and he gets accosted by a cop who's like, hey, you look like a baggage thief. And before he could even answer, Formil comes back and asks the cop, hey, do you know how to get to this address? And he says, just get a cab. That's it. That's all that happens on this page. If this and Marsupilami are any indication, I would have to say sometimes there's really a few pages that are unnecessary in French graphic novels. I do have to say this. The art is amazing in this book. I really do like it. The detail behind everything, this is a living and breathing world so far. I know we're only a few pages in, but so far I'm liking it. So Formil and Yuri kind of walk away, and she's like, hey, you should be thanking me for getting rid of the cop. And that's when they make their formal introductions. They're like, what do you think's happening here? And Yuri says, I think we're dreaming. Formil's like, okay, yeah, but which one? And who's in whose dream? And this kind of confuses him. And Formil jumps into a cab, and in all honesty, it just hit me. This is the Flintstones, because everything is an animal. So while they're riding along in the cab, they address the fact that even though they don't know what language it is, they are speaking and understanding everybody perfectly. And the cab driver's like, you guys are bagpipes. And she's like, bagpipes? Bagpipes, newcomers, people who arrive without knowing where they are and take a cab even if they're flat broke. Well, don't worry, I've got what you need. Some good dollars, not euros. Worthless pieces of paper. I knew it. I want gold, well, at least silver, or maybe we can make a deal. And he turns around, pulls down Formil's shirt. The young lady could show me her boobs, for instance. This causes Formil to be angry. Hey, what's wrong with you? And she slaps the heck out of him. If this is your dream, it's really sick. Hey, it's not my fault. No money and not even a rightful reward. I'm calling the cops. Wait. And before the cab driver could call the cops, Yuri makes a deal with him to trade his watch. Not because it tells time, because time keeps changing, he says, but because it plays music. And then they get dropped off at their destination, and Formil's like, wait a second, aren't we supposed to wake up now? Yuri responds, apparently not, and then they see Sigisbert, the Prishan that they met on the airplane, and Formil's like, you can see him now? And can you explain what we're doing here? And Sigisbert says, you're here to see my father. And at first they're kind of cramped. He explains, of course, that usually the level that they're on is reserved for his species and not humans. So they meet up with Sigisbert's dad, who's kind of surprised that there's another dude that wasn't supposed to be there. And he mentions, of course, she looks like her aunt. You're going to get an inheritance, but you're stuck here forever. And when then he asks Sigisbert about what's this other guy doing here. So Sigisbert says, well, she was touching his arm, and it was a transference mistake. And the dad says, well, you got to fill out a report, 4 copies, there's rules. And Yuri says, well, just send us home. And he says it's impossible. And then Yuri turns to Formil and says, you know what? This has to be your dream, because I've always thought parallel universe stories were lame. And this is when Sigisbert's dad says, sir, Ekho is not a parallel universe. It's the philoplasmatic extension of an alternate reality that was built and sustained thanks to patient work of thematic energy. Show some respect for a work that has required such efforts. And then he tells them to make all preparations to remain there forever, and then says, here is the objects of your inheritance. And he hands her some paper. So Vermille finds out that her aunt ran a travel agency, and she asks, well, are there any debts? The father says, no, but we got to get to tea time. She goes, well, I'm not going to sign anything without reading it. And they get very adamant that they have to drink their tea at a certain time, that it's a thing that their species does. And when the tea arrives, the Prishans basically invite the humans to leave, saying you got to go out the stairs, out the window, because the elevators are closed down for tea time. They look at it and go, wow, I didn't know tea could do this. And Yuri, for some reason, is still stuck on the idea that this is a dream. That is until the fire escape becomes stuck, and Vermille says, why don't you jump down first, and then you could catch me? And so it's like, if it's a dream, you're not going to get hurt. He lands, of course, hurting himself, and she goes, catch me. He's like, wait, and then lands on him, and she's like, I thought you would be stronger. He's like, I thought you'd be less heavy. And this, of course, pisses her off, because after everything, then he talks about her weight, women things, I guess. And I got to admit, I kind of dig this particular character moment. She gets mad, slaps him for making the weight comment, and they're like, well, we hate each other. Let's just go our own way. But then they're walking away, and both of them go, yeah, you know what? I guess I could see her point. I guess so. Which is interesting. It's an interesting way to go about it. Of course, it makes it just one more page that's unnecessary if they immediately come back together. But cool enough, it doesn't. As we see Yuri walk away, he's like, it's not my fault. And she's like, hell, you know what? He shouldn't have said that kind of stuff. And then Yuri realizes, wait a second, she's got the money, and I'm here with nothing in this universe that's useful and hungry. So he decides to go to Central Park. So Vermille finally finds her aunt's old agency, and she runs into Grace Lumumba, who she's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And Grace says, it's normal, bagpipes always feel lost. I'm a native here, so the other side seems strange to me, which makes me wonder, how did she make it over? And I'm not sure where I got the traveling agency thing, but she asked Lumumba, hey, what kind of fuck. So I don't know where I got traveling agency from, because Vermille says, what kind of agency are we? And Lumumba, whatever her name is, says, we're a talent agency. She lists off the act, which includes her and her sister, a white girl, who strip. And she says, hey, my job as a secretary is to make a living, but my true passion is the art of nakedness. And then she asks, well, okay, I don't know any, and then Vermille says, hey, look, I have no idea about Ekho. Can you explain it to me? But then Lumumba doesn't give us any new information. We've already heard what she says before. Cut to Yuri, who looks like he's in the park and with a couple of homeless people. But no one ever goes back. That's it. Now, the bagpipes used to tell us about magical things like electricity, the stuff that lights up better than candles. I guess that magic doesn't work here, and Yuri replies, electricity, but it's very easy to build a generator. It don't work, I tell you. I've tried a lot. Here, have a drink. I wouldn't mind one. I think I need it, he says, and he grabs onto the alcohol. And Vermille learns, okay, so she was about to die. That plane was destined to crash. The Prishan didn't cause it, and Prishans usually drag people over who are about to die, and Yuri finds out that Central Park is huge. It's a forest filled with animals, and if you have nothing, hunting meat to sell to the city is one of the few ways you can make some money. And I got to admit, I like the world building. This is about 22, 23 pages in. So this is a full comic right here. This would be a regular American comic. This is a graphic novel, of course, so it's a bit longer. It runs about 50 pages. So I got to say, there's a lot of information given to us in such a short time. And when I think about some of the books out there that have maybe 2 words on a page, it amazes me that American companies get away with that. And, of course, we're showing the parallels of what Fermil and Yuri are going through. Fermil, of course, says, hey, where's my room? She walks in. It's luxurious, but it's all kind of strange for her. So she's like, it needs a few tweaks. Like, I would throw everything out. And we cut to Yuri, who's basically living homeless under some blankets. And the homeless guy that he's with says, hey, see, you're never alone here. This is a brotherhood. And then, of course, steals the covers. We cut to the nightclub to see a thing singing New York, New York. And when we go backstage, Yumi and Yuma are getting ready for their strip show. And Troll comes in and says, hey, you brought another girl to learn the job. He smacks her on the ass. And that's when Fermil puts her hair up and says, my little Bjorn, what's with the intimacy? How dare you inappropriately touch old Odella Gratool? So everybody's really wondering what the heck's going on. Why is this young woman saying that she's this old lady that they've done business with for all these years, when a magician came in and says, do you remember when I first signed up for your act? And she gives information that she would know. And he's like, oh my gosh, this girl's haunted by Odella Gratool. And we cut to Yuri, who is woken up saying, hey, we're going on a night hunt. Who wants to volunteer? He says, I need money. Doesn't know exactly what he's doing, but he's played, what's that game, Angry Birds? So he says, hey, I've thrown birds at pigs. I could do this. And he's told that he gets 2% of whatever they take, and he's going to be the beater that chases things out of the bush for them to hunt. And back at the club, we see Yumi and Yuma doing their striptease. And yes, I've checked. There's no nudity here. No actual nudity. But while she's doing that, the magician asks Odell if she remembers dying. She's like, oh, don't talk nonsense. And he mentions, you fell off your building. And she's like, wait a second. Now I do remember flying. He goes, falling. But then Odelia in the body of Fermil says, wait a second, one thing I do remember is I was pushed. I remember falling, and then poof. After that, she kind of goes, wait, where am I? As we see Fermil comes back into control, and she's asking, oh man, I wanted to see their show. They just started? No, they just finished. And who gave me a ballet bun? I hate this. So when they're backstage, the magician goes, whoa, this girl was possessed by her Aunt Adele, and Aunt Adele said that she remembered being murdered. And he goes, I'm a magician. I know about this stuff. You will be haunted again until we solve who murdered her. And then we cut to Yuri, who is in the forest with a lamp and a stick and psyching himself up to the point where he gets scared by ducks. And after he realizes that he may have stumbled into the forbidden part of the forest, he figures he's not going to get paid for this. He's got to work his own way out. And he swears he is not going to win the Darwin Award for dying in Central Park, whether it's a fantasy world or not. And then for some reason, we see more of the striptease. To a Christmas Carol, nonetheless. Cut back to Yuri, who's hunting. He figures he'll try to find a rabbit, but then the boar just comes right out of the forest, knocking him down. The lamp goes out, and he's thinking, okay, it's better I'm in the dark. The light probably attracted him. And then he turns around and sees a huge monster behind him, barreling down on him. Yuri and the monster fight each other. He stabs him with a spear and gets a couple of cuts in and manages to get away. Hoping the beast can't climb, Yuri makes his way up a tree to the smallest of branches at the top, thinking, oh, goodness, this is going to break. The beast can climb. And as he gets closer to Yuri, Yuri turns around and jumps to another tree. Yuri, feeling like Tarzan, mocks the monster. Ha-ha, you want to do that again? I'll just keep jumping from tree to tree, and you'll never catch me unless you're very patient and you wait down at the bottom, which it looks like what the monster is going to do. So Yuri says, you know what? I'll just sleep right here, and we'll see in the morning. On the other hand, I think I should stay awake. You never know. Then we cut back to the club where Yumi and Yuri is finishing up a set, and we discover that Yuri's actually a junkie. There's this animal that sucks blood, but when they do, they actually their saliva causes hallucinations. And that's how some people get high, and it looks like Yuri's a bit of a junkie. Okay, so I read this page 4 times, and I can't get past the word perturbations, which I just said right there. Okay, so anyway, in this one, we see Sigisbert show up, and he's with Yuri, and he's saying, hey, you know what? You're not supposed to be here. You are actually the responsibility of Miss Gratool, and you have to go. And Yuri warns him, wait a second, I saw this. I was being chased by this big creature. And he says, you shouldn't be afraid of little animals. He goes, no, it's a big, terrifying creature with fangs. And I tore this off, and he goes, wait a second, this looks like... And that's when Sigisbert grabs it, and he says, I lost that button climbing a tree. So it's kind of hinting the fact that that big-ass monster is actually Sigisbert. The following morning, Famil returns to her apartment with the two strippers just to see Sigisbert. Gosh, you thought I had hold of it, didn't you? Sigisbert outside with Yuri. And he's saying, hey, you didn't hold up your end of the bargain. You need to take care of him. Everything's like really balanced. And then all of a sudden, Famil puts her hair back up and she's the old lady yelling at Sigisbert that they've been trying to ruin her life for 40 years since she's been there. Yummy tells Sigisbert that, well, you know, sometimes she gets possessed by the spirit of her aunt. Yuri's like, wait a second, there's ghosts here too. And as they're walking away, Odella notices the marks on Yuri's, Yummy and Yuri, whichever one. The one that was using the drugs, and she's like, hey, I thought I told you to stop doing crap. As a matter of fact, didn't I fire you? Wait a second, we were by the pigeon house, and goes, oh my gosh, you're the one who pushed me. Sigisbert blows the whistle to bring the cops. She tries to make her escape, but Yuri jumps on top of her when the cops show up. He's like, hey, whoa, hold on. She's the criminal. He was just trying to hold her. And then the cops go, oh, well, I guess the case is 100% wrapped up then. So the cops do decide to take her in, but first, of course, they search her ass for weapons, literally, and it's said that, okay, so if the magician is right, if we believe him, that means you're going to lose your aunt's spirit now because you solved the murder. The cops fly off, wanting to search the stripper's body some more. And Sigisbert says, hey, don't worry, we've got great lie detectors, so we'll be able to tell if she really did kill your aunt. And then he tells Yuri and Famil to go home and go to sleep. They have a little moonlighting talk where, oh, you want to sleep with me? No, I just want to go to sleep. So you do want to sleep with me? No. And, she comes off like a shrill, the same way Sybil Shepherd did in the season 5 of Moonlighting. The other stripper says, I'm just going to go back to my apartment and sleep. And he goes, well, the Prashans are hiding something, so I'm going to search for it. And they go into the subway, which is, it's a Flintstones animal. I'm telling you, we're living in bedrock here. So they decide to follow Sigisbert using discretion. Unfortunately, first they get on a subway where Famil's the only woman, and of course you see how she's dressed. And then they walk through Harlem where they're the only white people until they get to a dock and they see where Sigisbert is going. And where it seems they're going is the warehouse or something, the factory for the philoplasm that they keep talking about. Because he says the philoplasm is oscillating dramatically around Miss Gratoul and her guest. And Sigisbert says, I know it's entirely my fault. Last night I went looking for Mr. Podrov in Central Park, and the pressure was so great. I think he suspects something. And then they hear a big ruckus, and they find out that Yuri and Famil has actually followed Sigisbert into the factory. So Famil starts yelling at Sigisbert about the fact that, wait, you brought us here with these machines, right? Yuri, of course, is angry as well, yelling and screaming when Famil says, oh, and they notice that Sigisbert is turning into that big beast that chased Yuri the night before when his father starts yelling, T, we must get him emergency tea. Calm down, Sigisbert. Tea is coming. Sigisbert continues to pursue the two humans to the roof, yelling and screaming. They're worried about surviving. So it's like, jump, let's not. You stay here and block them. I'm going to run away, says Famil. When all of a sudden the father and the helper show up with a whole bunch of syringes filled with tea and inject them into the ass of Sigisbert. So Sigisbert does calm down, and Yuri's like, wait a second, this happens to you guys? Yeah, and the younger ones, of course, are harder to control themselves. And he says, does everybody know about this? And the father says no. He goes, well, you got to warn the people about this thing. And the helper says, you know what? You're not going to get a chance to tell anybody. So they turn into big-ass monsters and carry Yuri and Famil away. But we find out it's not their plan to kill them. They just are erasing their memories, and then they put them back in the bed, in Famil's bedroom, where they wake up and they have a little moonlighting discussion. Wait a second, did we have sex? I don't think we had sex. And she says, of course, if we had sex, you would remember having sex with me. And I don't make it a point of going out with aging Romeos. And he's like, I'm barely 40. And the friend pops in and says, hey, lovebirds, coffee's ready. And that's when Yuri says, it's your dream. And that, my friends, is the end of the first appearance of Ekho. Okay, I've got to admit, I like it. First of all, the art is very Disney-esque, especially if you've ever seen the movie Atlantis, the one with Michael J. Fox and I think it was like Cree Summer doing the voices. I really like this art. And like I said, it reminded me of a Disney movie. Granted, there's a lot more tits in this one than there is in your average Disney cartoon. but it really did appeal to me. I love the world building. I do believe, just like with Marsupilami, this is longer than it needs to be. There's about 3 or 4 places you could have ended it. There are pages of nothingness. You know, okay, sometimes that's good character building, but other times it's absolutely able to be cut and you would lose nothing. There's work needed to be done. The whole mystery thing was more build up than and very little payoff, because it was like next day stuff done. That could have been actually expanded a little bit more, I think, or at least brought across a couple of issues. Overall, I liked it, and I could recommend it. Yeah, I would recommend this book a lot. And I'd be interested in following the adventures of Ekho and Yuri. Yeah, so anyway, what did you guys think if you've made it this far? This was a long video. It's a long book. These French books are not short. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That's the only thing YouTube cares about. As a matter of fact, YouTube's burying this channel, so please share. Make sure that we can counteract what they're doing to it. Also, if you don't mind helping out the channel, go on over to Patreon or to Ko-Fi, drop $1 in the till, or just like it was done right here, you can commission your own video. Just go on over to Ko-Fi, pick out any category, bad comic beatdown, if you want me to take apart any of the bad comics out there. Really that bad is looking at a famously bad storyline. Comic book origins are much like this, where we take a look at the first appearance. Comic books were better, or my top 10 lists of why comics in the past were better than now. We've got comic book origins of minority characters. Well, that actually explains itself. And really that good takes a look at famously good stories to see if they are as good as we think. I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that. And to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.